Hello students, the topic is network models. In this lecture we will discuss all the 7 layers of the network model. So we also use all these 7 layers in our daily life. For instance, if we take a very common example that if we want to communicate with our friend or relative through postal mail. So if there was no services available of the post office, then it would be really complex for us to transmit or deliver that mail or letter to our friend or relative, right? So this is how we use these layers in our daily life. Now this is a more descriptive look that how a letter is delivered from sender to the receiver. So you can see that the different tasks are involved here at the higher level, middle layers, lower layers. First the letter is written, it is put in an envelope and dropped in the mailbox. Then the postman comes and carries all the mails from the mailboxes, and then he delivered to the post office. Then the letter is carried from the post office to the mailbox. The letter is picked up and removed from the envelope and read by the receiver. So this is how that different tasks, or you can see here how the parcel is carried from the source to the destination and from the sender to the receiver. So this is how we use all these layers in our daily life. The OSI model. There are two terms. The one is ISO and the second is OSI. Different students gets confused with these both terms. They mix up these, but let us explain it a bit to you. ISO, International Standards Organization, which was established in 1947. It basically sets the different standards or rules for the communication. It is an organization. What is the model, the communication model or the network model? That is OSI. OSI stands for Open System Interconnection Model, which was introduced in the 1973s or 74 somewhere. So don't get confused with these two terms. The ISO is the organization and OSI is the network model comprising of 7 layers. Right? So this is the same thing, that ISO is the organization and OSI is the model. What are the different layers of the OSI model? They sum up for the 7. If we start from the bottom, the first is physical layer, data link layer, network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation layer, and application. Later on we will discuss the different standards and their functions. See, the interaction between layers in the OSI model, how these interact with each other. See, here you can see that if we start again from the bottom, the physical and physical, the communication between them is physical. Data link layer, the communication will be through data link. Network and network communication will be through networks. The transport, session layer, presentation layer, and application layer. Here we use the peer-to-peer protocol. So as we discussed earlier, that peer-to-peer means point to point, right? So here will be one device and here will be one device. This is peer-to-peer or point to point communication. So here you can see that an exchange using the OSI model, how is it done? Here we are having some headers, you can see here, and some codes in the form of the binary notations. So this header may be the source, this may be the destination, and in between you are having the actual data, and this actual data we name it as the payload, right? So this is how data is exchanged. Next, now we will briefly discuss the functions of each layer in the OSI model. The first layer is physical layer. Here you can see that we are having some bits coming from the data link layer and then they are transmitted to the data link layer, right? If we are starting from the first layer, from the presentation layer, then it will receive from the data link layer, and if we are starting from the bottom layer, that is physical layer, then there will some transmission medium and these bits will be uh, transmitted to the data link layer. So this is the function of the physical layer. right? So the physical layer is responsible for the movements of individual bits from one hop to the next. What is a hop? A hop is a node, right? So as you can see here, these are some bits and it is transmitted these bits from this layer to the data link layer. So this is the function of the physical layer. Now we will come to the data link layer. Here you can see that we are having a frame, right? This is a frame, complete frame. This we are having data, that is the payload, the two headers here, the one may be the source and other may be the destination, and the whole is a frame. So in data link layer there is a transport or the movement of frames from one layer to the another. See, it is receiving from the upper layer the frames are different, and then it is transmitting the frames back to the network layer. See, you can see first it is moving the frames to the physical layer and then through the physical layer to the network layer, right? So in between is the data link layer. So it is acting as an intermediate layer for the physical layer and the network layer. See, the data link layer is responsible for moving frames from one hop or node to the next, right? So as we have already discussed that it is responsible for the movement of frames from one layer or one node to the next one. So here you can see that hop to hop delivery or node to node delivery. Here we are having the data link layer and physical layer. Here we are having different nodes. So this is node to node delivery. See, here it is also node to node or hop to hop, right? So this is all about the node to node. Here you can see that we are having some end system. Here is a router and then there is some communication line between them. So this is all about the node to node communication or hop to hop communication. The next is the network layer. Now let us see first. In network layer we are very familiar that it is responsible for the movement of packets. The exchange is in the form of the packets. So here it is receiving some information from the transport layer and then it is transmitting it to the back above to the transport layer, but the movement is in the form of packets. So this is the main function. The network layer is responsible for the delivery of individual packets from the source host to the destination, right? So it receives some packets from the source host and then it is responsible to deliver them very efficiently to the destination host, right? So this is how it is working. You can see here that it is receiving some information from the source and then it is transmitting it to the destination. Here is the destination and the transmission is in the form of the packets. Next is transport layer. As we know that the movement is in the form of segments in the transport layer. It is receiving some information from the session layer and then it makes segment the data, makes some segments and then move it back through the session layer, right? You can see here this is the transport layer, network layer and session layer. So the movement is in the form of segments. So the transport layer is responsible for the delivery of a message from one process to another. So it is receiving the message from the session layer and then it makes segments of it and then it transmits it very efficiently to the destination. So this is the function of transport layer. The reliable process to process delivery of a message. Process to process, we can say that source to destination, host to host. So this here the host is source and here the host is destination, right? Process to process delivery, yes, we can say it. This is the source and this is the destination. In between there is some communication line or internet, we can say. So it is a very reliable delivery of a message through the transport layer. Now the session layer. Session layer, you can see it is responsible for the creating the sessions and terminating the sessions. It is also responsible for doing some kind of the synchronization, right? So you can see here how is it working. The session layer is responsible for the dialog control and synchronization. The same is the function as we discussed for the forming the session and terminating the session and also synchronization, right? So the presentation layer, as um in our daily life we make some document and then we um do some work on it to make it more presentable. So the presentation layer function is same. like it has to syntaxualized from the session layer, right? So the presentation layer is responsible for the translation, compression, encryption. Like if it is in some other language, it is responsible to translate it. If the size is very high, it is responsible to compress it. If we need to do some encryption, we need to do some apply some passwords on it or some rules on it. The presentation layer is responsible for that. Now you can see here that we are having a user here. It is transmitting some message, then it goes through the presentation layer, and then it goes back to the user. So here is the how it is telling us that presentation layer will work, right? So the application layer is providing responsible for providing services to the user. So this is how application layer works. That if we need to work online, so the internet is providing us the services, or if we need to make a document, we will be making it on the MS Word. So MS Word is the application here, right? So these all comes under the category of the application layer. So this is the summary of all the layers, the summary of the functions of all the layers, we should say. The application layer, it allow access to network resources, right? So it provides some resources to the user. Presentation layer is used to translate, encrypt, and compress the data. The session layer is used to establish, manage, and terminate the sessions. Transport layer is provide reliable message delivery and error recovery from source to the destination or process to process. Then the network layer is responsible to move the packets from source to destination, right? Data link layer to organize the frames to provide hope to hope delivery. A physical layer to transmit the bits over a medium to provide mechanical and electrical specifications. So this is all we have already discussed previously, but this is a summary of the functions of all the layers. Now we will discuss some protocols of all the layers. So you can see that the layers in the transmission control protocol, IP protocols, who do not exactly match those in the OSI model. So just skip this and we will come directly to the protocols of all the layers, right? So for the application, presentation, and session layer, we are having different protocols. Here you can see that SMTP, stream media transfer protocol, and the FTP, file transfer protocol, HTTP, hypertext transfer protocol, DNS, domain name server, and SNMP, telnet. So these are all the protocols that are used in all these layers: application layer, presentation layer, and session layer, right? So we will discuss their function later on, but just giving you an overview of all these protocols used in the different layers. The next layer is transport layer. Here we are using first we were having only the TCP, right? We were having the TCP, that is transmission control protocol or transfer control protocol. It is an acknowledgement based, right? Then we have the UDP. What is UDP? UDP is the user datagram protocol, right, used in the transport layer. And then when we started the online streaming, we started using another protocol, that is SCTP, stream control transmission or transfer protocol, that is used for the online sessions, right? So these were the three protocols mainly used in the transport layer. The next is network layer. We are having, this is basically the IP layer. We can name it as IP layer. We are having four protocols over here, that is ICMP, IGMP, RARP, ARP. So what are these? ICMP, Internet Control Message Protocol, Internet Group Message Protocol, Reverse Address Resolution Protocol, Address Resolution Protocol. So these are all related with the IP addresses or the network layers. In the physical and data layers, the protocols are defined by the underlying networks, that is host to the network, right? So we are not using some any of the protocols primarily in these two layers. So this was all about the protocols we use in all these layers. Now four levels of different, we are having different addresses for all the layers. We are having four levels that are used in internet employing the TCP IP protocols. So what are these four levels? These are physical addresses, logical addresses, port addresses, and specific addresses, right? So these are the four different forms of the addresses. So where we use them, now we will discuss them accordingly with the layers. In the physical and data link layer, we use physical addresses. Network layer, we use logical addresses. In the transport layer, we use port addresses. And in the application layer, we use specific addresses, right? So these are the different four forms of the addresses we use in these layers, right? So this is about the physical addresses we use in the physical layer. And the data link layer, here we are having the sender, and here we are having the receiver. And here, if the packet is dropped, it means that the packet does not match to the destination address, right? So this is the hexadecimal representation for the physical address. You can see, as we will see in that most local area networks use a 48-bit, that is 6 byte physical address is written a 12 hexadecimal digits. Every byte 2 hexadecimal is separated by a colon. You can see this is the hexa digits representation, that is equal to the 48-bit. So these are some examples. You can study them later, but there is no need to discuss them examples here. And we will discuss the IP addresses in detail later. So this was all about the OSI model, and we discussed the different layers, different protocols, the functions of the layers, and then we also discussed the different four forms of the addresses of all the layers.